Now that we know what a pivot table can do, let's get to building one. We'll start out by opening the file, Pivot Table 415 exercise files. This workbook contains a table of information to use for Jamie Best Real Estate. Move to the List of Homes tab. Like many things in the Microsoft universe, there is a really easy way to build pivot tables. In older versions of Excel, it was the Pivot Table Wizard. Well, it's essentially still the Pivot Table Wizard, but as of Excel 2007, Microsoft felt this was such a valuable component they gave it its own button on the Insert ribbon. So let's get to it. Make sure we're on the List of Homes tab. We want to click on any cell within this table of information, just one. Make sure that only one cell is selected. If you have only one cell selected, Excel will assume that you want to use the whole table. If you select several cells, Excel will try to make a pivot table with just those cells you select. Once you've selected a cell in the table, let's go to the Insert ribbon and select the Pivot Table button. The dialog box that comes up is asking for a couple more pieces of information about your pivot table. The first thing we're going to look at is the radio button that says Select a Table or Range. And you'll see Excel has already filled this out based on our selection, and it did indeed select the whole table that we are on. Another option you have here is to connect to an external data source. This would let us connect to a table in an Access database or SQL Server or some other database and make our pivot table off of that. We're going to save that for another lesson. The other option on this dialog is the location. Where do we want the pivot table to be built? We could choose to put it on a brand new worksheet or an existing one. Pivot tables are dynamic, and that means they can grow and shrink depending on the data that are in them. For this reason, I usually always put pivot tables on a sheet with nothing else on it. So let's choose the new worksheet option, which is already selected, and click OK. Now we've just created the framework for our pivot table, but now we have to construct it. If you look here on the left side of the screen, Excel is showing us where the finished pivot table is going to go once it's built. Docked along the right side of the screen, you'll see the Pivot Table Assistant. On the top half are all the fields that will be available to us to make our pivot table with. And these are the same ones that were in our data sheet. Below the fields are boxes representing the different sections of the pivot table. We've got our report filters, column labels, row labels, and values. Okay, to add fields, all we have to do is drag them where we want to go. Let's try to make that first pivot table again. Let's take our bedrooms field and drag it to the row section under row labels and just let it go. And now you see, it's starting to build this pivot table on the fly. We've got our row labels 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now let's add the bathrooms to the column section. Go over there and add it to the columns. Now we have a row and column pivot table, but nothing in the middle. We want to build in capability to see a count at the intersection of bathrooms and bedrooms, but we don't really have a count field up here, do we? So what we're going to do is we're going to drag street address down to the value section. And there you go. It automatically counted the values. How does it know? Don't worry, Excel can't read our mind yet. Excel follows a logical method, takes a guess at what we want to do with the data when we put it in the value section. In the case of street address, it's not really made up of any numbers, so Excel figures we must just be trying to count something.